Hello, good morning, welcome. I am Samuel Trapp. This is International Flavor. You are listening to Damn Radio. I'm coming to you live today from the Lake Ozark Real Estate of the Art Studio. Please feel free to call in 573-746-8020. Although what I have mostly today is an essay. Those of you who I kind of went off the rails on Saturday, and when I first found out about the Trump, Trump's the king of the world. I'm the king of the world, and he gets to dictate. He is. I've gotten some disturbing messages. That I wrote an article yesterday. I spent a little bit of the day writing an article, and I think I want to share it with you. And I did some research. I translated it into Russian later. I sent it over. It's going to be published, or they might change some of the formats. You told me already this morning, but this is a big deal, folks, and it's disturbing. What the United States of America has done is pretty disturbing. And once again, we demonstrated that international law for Washington is not an obligation, but a selectively applied instrument. I am talking about Venezuela. I'm talking about what went on there. It's selective completely. The seizure of Venezuela's sitting president, all right, without authorization from the UN Security Council, without an international mandate, without lawful jurisdiction. Most importantly, I'd like anybody to call in and tell me how the U.S. takes jurisdiction. Now, they have, but how's the judge at noon today? They say it was at noon Eastern or something, but this is not lawful jurisdiction. This is the same. So I bitch about government overreach a lot. You know that. And this is classic overreach. This is wrong. Okay, no matter how much the cheerleader of war, Lindsey Graham, and Marco Rubio too. By the way, they both are very much into war and force. They just are. And Rubio's been going on about Venezuela for years. And I told you on Saturday, if you go back and listen to that, there's the pathway, the stretching the truth as much as the outright lying. Let's call it what it is. These people are lying to you. Okay, don't believe it. Okay, and we're gonna walk through a lot of that today. But I'm gonna share with you this fairly short article I wrote. It's only 1,000 words or something. It's not that long. And the English version goes like this. United States of America once again demonstrated that international law for Washington is not an obligation but a selectively applied instrument. The seizure of Venezuela's sitting president without authorization from the UN Security Council, without an international mandate, and without lawful jurisdiction has become a clear example of how a state that has lectured the world for decades about the rule of law now openly dismantles even the effort to pretend that this is lawful. Donald Trump on Air Force One last night was unbelievable. I mean, wait till I get into that. I mean, the comments that he made, what occurred cannot be described as a special operation, a law enforcement action, or a counterterrorism measure. That's gone. You can't claim this is narco-terrorism because it has nothing to do with it. It was oil and other resources. It was a direct use of armed force against a sovereign state and the state-sponsored kidnapping of the head of another country. This constitutes a blatant and demonstrative violation of the UN Charter, particularly Article 2, subparagraph 4, which explicitly prohibits the use of force against political independence of any state. Claims of self-defense are untenable. Venezuela did not carry out an armed attack against the United States, posed no imminent threat, provided no grounds for invoking Article 51 of the UN Charter, even if we had bothered to ask for it. The UN Security Council neither authorized nor debated the use of force. The United States deliberately bypassed the collective security mechanism, placing itself above, as usual, international law. The question of jurisdiction is equally critical. U.S. courts do not possess lawful authority over a foreign head of state acting within his own country. Extraterritorial criminal jurisdiction exists only in narrowly defined circumstances under international conventions and does not justify the forcible removal of an individual from the territory of a sovereign state. Manufacturing jurisdiction by physically abducting and transporting an accused person to the United States is a legal fiction and a serious violation of international norms. Now, that's not to say that we won't stretch the system to create it. You know, we'll get creative, no doubt, and do something for him. But a real judge, tell you what, would say this is not the way it goes. You don't kidnap somebody to create jurisdiction. The use of the term narco-terrorism in this context is a political device rather than any sort of legal category. It is not codified in the UN Charter, does not confer automatic authority for military intervention. If combating drug trafficking were the genuine objective, other countries in the region would logically be the primary focus. Venezuela, however, possesses what many others do not: the world's largest proven oil reserves. Control over resources, not concern for democracy, absolutely not, or security is the real motive. This has been openly acknowledged at the highest political levels. What we are witnessing right now is a textbook case of 21st century resource imperialism disguised as law enforcement. History provides a familiar pattern. Panama, Nicaragua, Yugoslavia, Iraq, Libya, Syria. Each case involves accusations, military intervention, so-called transition periods, and long-term instability, while the U.S. steals the resources. None of these countries ever emerged more stable or free. The reaction of the international audience indicates that the global question is no longer whether such actions are legal. The question now is why the United States no longer even pretends that rules apply to it. What happened in Venezuela is not an isolated incident, but a dangerous precedent. A state that permits itself to abduct foreign leaders demonstrates a willingness to act completely without restraint. Today, it's Venezuela. Tomorrow, Cuba. He's already threatened it. After that, Greenland. He threatened that on Air Force One. I mean, it's nonsense. I have been a Trump fan for the most part. You know, I've said that, but I tell you what, that's quickly changing. This is nuts. Tomorrow, it could be any country whose resources or political alignment are deemed inconvenient by Lindsey Graham or Marco Rubio. This is crap. This is nonsense. And I could rant about this, and I plan to. You know, I'm gonna keep on trucking on this. And I had some things I wanted to talk about. I wanted to talk about going further on this, but this. Get it? Trumps everything that is important. I mean, and you know, you don't have to agree with me. I know people that do not. I know people that, oh, geez, it's on our southern border and we're protecting the planet. You aren't protecting shit. This is not for protection. This is theft, period. And I'm gonna go through that. So this, I listened to a buttload of transcripts over the weekend, and listened to some things. And the core allegation across every transcript in every language, the same accusations appear in different, languages. The United States under Donald Trump, with Rubio and Graham, of course, driving the train, is no longer pressuring Venezuela. It is under their control. Listen to this. Listen to what is being said. The U.S. will run Venezuela. What? When did we get that right? This is nonsense. Someone else's oil is now ours. Direct administration through force, sanctions, and detention. Not regime change, regime ownership. We own it. And by God, they put in a what do you call it? A vice president. She was sworn in, to keep the country going. Constitutionally, she said some pretty rough things on what she was going to say. Wasn't there, and it was, we'll deal with her. Basically, the language is imperial language. This is imperial. This is Darth Vader in The Empire Strikes Back. This is what this is. And the language used is imperial. British East India Company behavior. Remember that. This is it. Iraq 2003, but faster, blunter, no shame of any kind about it. This is Banana Republic doctrine without pretense. We're not pretending about it. We aren't pretending. What was discussed? Whether Maduro was captured, detained, coerced, or simply placed under U.S. custody. Whether this constitutes kidnapping, an act of war, extraterritorial arrest, violation of the Vienna Convention. Think about that. We're comparisons to Noriega, but with no legal theater. This is there is no legal basis, no international warrant, pure power politics. Law has been invoked only after the force has succeeded. Now we claim law, right? I listen to Jeffrey Sachs. If you listen to him, he's always interesting. He says it's illegal under international law. He says Washington has abandoned even the fiction that rules apply. And the multipolar backlash is going to be huge. It was never, ever about drugs. This is not about drugs. Drugs was an excuse. Democracy? Oh, yeah. It's about democracy, right? We'll put elections in after we have stolen everything. That's what Trump said. When we feel it's necessary, we will allow a foreign country to have elections. This is a joke. I mean, you can't... This is nuts. We will run Venezuela, period. Democracy? Gone. Human rights? They don't exist. Oil is the meal. We have created, hey, smorgasbord for us. Lindsey Graham, right? Marco Rubio. The Orinoco Belt reserves referenced again and again. That's all they wanted. U.S. refineries are designed for Venezuelan crude, if you're Donald Trump, right? Sanctions are conveniently timed with energy pressure elsewhere. The narco-state language is selective, not consistent. If this were about drugs, Colombia would be on the plate, wouldn't it? Peru would be on the plate. That's not it. India has been, I made a special effort to go out and find the story on India. Okay, now, India has tried to act diplomatically in its best interest under everything. And there was very little to glean, to go out there and find. But India is expressing grave concern. I'm expressing grave concern. This is not how adults act. This isn't it. What about sovereignty? Does that exist? What about non-intervention? Does it exist? What about diplomatic resolutions? Votes are supposed to come first. We get to dictate who's legitimate, who's not, anywhere in the world that we want to. We've done it everywhere. It's the West that gets, U.S. mostly, that gets to say that the referenda in Crimea or in Donbass or in any of those we don't like them. And it's only our interpretation of it. We're still doing the same freaking thing in Serbia. We've run Serbia. There's a king in Serbia. I told you about this. The king that's over there. And we put this in here. We're doing it again. And Americans just forget about it. We just, yeah, we got him. I mean, I can't tell you how much I've heard that over the weekend. Yeah, we took him down. Was there any question that we could or couldn't? Nonsense. India is emphasizing sovereignty, supposed to matter, non-intervention, supposed to matter, diplomatic resolutions. They don't endorse U.S. action. They're very uncomfortable with this action. They didn't give any theatrical outrage or anything like that. But India certainly didn't bless the action. India is protecting its own energy interests. And it is quietly, we're a bunch of nuts. You got to watch out for these guys. Next move, Greenland. And people are happy about it. Oh, yeah, we're going to take Greenland. What the hell is wrong with you people? It's nuts. The solidarity and the destruction of any potential global order is upon us. There is no global order without rules. And the rules only apply to somebody else. They don't apply to you, not remotely. We're Lindsey Graham. We're Marco Rubio. And now Donald Trump. I hate to think about what goes on in these chambers, when what's going on when I got a little bit to add about a little later. I have did an analysis of Lindsey Graham from the 2000 on. The guy's been wrong about everything he's done, and yet who are we getting the advice from as president? Freaking Lindsey Graham, the warmongering asshole who wants nothing but to be reelected and to take over the world. I swear to God, it's Pinky in the brain, unfortunately, in this scenario, Pinky is Donald Trump, and the brain is, what are we going to do now, Lindsey? Same thing we do every day, Donald. Plan to take over the world. This is what we're living. This is nuts. Let's see. India is refusing to legitimize this president. It's India has historically, at least for the last 15 years, they talk calmly. They have a long memory, though. They were imperial subjects for a long time. They were imperial, and China they feel the same way. China commentary theme. Venezuela is a proxy battlefield. U.S. move seen as an escalation of U.S.-China economic war. China has $100 billion that they have invested in Venezuela. If you want to know what's really going on, this is an escalation of U.S.-China economic war. And by the way, they're making no bones about it. It's like, well, screw everybody on the planet. We're taking charge. I encourage you. I doubt I'll play it. Maybe I will, but it's like 30 minutes long, and I'm not going to play it all. I'm definitely going to quote some of it. I'm not very good at taking out cuts of it out of the 30 minutes, and I didn't have time to go and pick all of the stuff. But if you get on YouTube and watch the joke of a press conference or the questions being asked on Air Force One, it's alarming what he is saying. And there is no law. I mean, law. Come on, Sam. What are you talking about? If Venezuela falls this way, no assets of any country are safe. It's just you can't do it. I mean, this we are the big bully on the block. Period. That's all there is to it. We have sunk to some horrible lows, and all we are bullies. What has Russia said? Sivkov, Russian, several panel shows. This is once again neo-colonial seizure. The U.S. has abandoned the international order it claims to lead, definitely. Links Venezuela to, more, frozen assets, selective legality. You cannot, here's a quote from this guy. You cannot feed the beast. The more you give it, the hungrier it becomes. Even Emmanuel Macron in Europe has developed a split personality. He's being publicly cautious, but privately he's pretty uneasy. He's emphasizing process, but he's not defending the outcome. Other European guys, Germany talks about procedural language. Quietly, by the way. They're all talking very, very quietly. Southern Europe is displaying anxiety over energy precedent. The EU, silent or vague. This is not accidental. They cannot, what do you call it? They can't, confront the Trumpster. They can't do it. He'll destroy them next. And, all the Trumpers out there, oh, great, it's fantastic. This is not fantastic. If you're not sad over this, an America that, that does this kind of thing, I feel for you. The only great one, think about this. Here's one. Ready? Volodymyr Zelensky, changed his name from Vladimir to Volodymyr Zelensky, and his he indirectly says, what? This is proof that might makes right. The U.S. rules are situational, but then they say Ukraine is definitely watching, China is watching, everybody is taking notes. And everybody's only watching, everybody, and trust me, they are thinking. They are absolutely thinking. You want to rush BRICS. You want to rush these other things. You might think you've destroyed BRICS by stealing the oil from Venezuela. I don't think so, bud. You've destroyed the UN. If anything, it means nothing. And we've got we got some strange people running this country. George Galloway, the guy I met in Kazan, I like listening to him, and I went out to get a strategic thought. I figured I'd get him correct, and before I ever listened to it, and I did. And the key thing from what the theme that he gave, he called it piracy. He makes fun of anything about liberation. You aren't liberating shit. You're just putting a new master in charge. That's it. A new dictator. If the vice president can't speak her mind, and you say, maybe we'll let her be in charge, but she better get in line. That is not liberation, people. Where is the democracy? It's just gone. It's piracy. There is no liberation. Straight line. Iraq, Libya, Venezuela. Same shit, different day. They don't even bother lying properly anymore, is what he said. They don't even bother to lie about it anymore. Now it's just straight up. He's pretty comical. George Galloway, go out. I mean, he doesn't mean to be comical. He's harsh, and what he put out there. Alex Christoforou, the guy that I like to listen to, his whole show, the entire thing, and he doesn't do this. He covers different news aspects, but his whole show, it's really good coverage. You go out and find Alex Christoforou, and he says it's the moral collapse of U.S. foreign policy. And now I reacted without any of this. It's anybody with a brain, I got news for you. This is what you're gonna think. The moral collapse of U.S. foreign policy is gone. Historical analogies, Rome, Caligula, warning that this normalizes the language of conquest. Trump is now saying the quiet part out loud. Screw it. We're big. We're bigger than you. We're badder than you. We got the best military in the world, and we did something nobody's ever done before. Why does it always have to be the exact same thing? You can anticipate it. We're the best. We're the biggest. If it wasn't for me, boy, I tell you what. What did he say when on the Air Force One? He said, "Venezuela is dead." Yeah. Venezuela is dead. And if I hadn't become president, we'd be dead. Yeah. This is not partisan. This is civilizational, people. This is not international. What about nationalism? What about being proud to be from Venezuela? What about, they got their own freaking problems. Now they have an even bigger one. And it's all for theft. Every bit of it. Trump is the emperor. He's not the president. Power is detached from restraint. The mask is completely off. We're just supposed to applaud now. Yay, Donald. Whoa, you've done it again. You're such a genius. That's what we're supposed to be doing, is just applauding him, right? This is terrible. Recurring phrases. Think about some of these. This is someone else's oil is now ours. Running Venezuela, we're running Venezuela. This is custody of a country, not diplomacy. Sanctions as a siege. Rules for you, force for us, and feeding the beast. Those were pretty common. And, the U.S. has crossed from coercion into ownership. We own it. It's ours. Venezuela's ours. We took it. It's a risk board. That's it. It is a risk board, and Donald Trump is rolling dice. Only the dice are always going to come up 6 because we're the biggest, baddest, right? Especially if you're going against Venezuela, right? We own it. Allies are pretty nervous. They're not supportive. There's not been a lot of support for this from anywhere, except here at home, the standard voices. The Lindsey Grahams of the world, the guy's nuts. Non-Western powers are cataloging this precedent. Law has been demoted to some kind of a press release and some kind of a district court judge in New York. They had to specifically pick. I'm interested to see what lies he comes up with today to establish jurisdiction over a foreign leader. Everybody's going to be watching his joke of a hearing today. The empire is speaking once again, quite plainly, and that is the real story. Let's be blunt. Let's be completely blunt. This isn't about Venezuela. This is a memo for the rest of the world. This is a memo. This is what you're getting, people. You better get used to it. What we've seen over the past several days is not just another Venezuelan story, not sanctions, not strong words from Washington. What we're watching is something dangerous and far more revealing for the first time in history. A very long time, at least. The U.S. isn't pretending. We aren't pretending. At least in Iraq, Libya, Syria, there we pretended that we were doing the right thing. Even Trumpster, when he was bombing Iran, was pretending that, he was doing it because it was the right thing to do. But we're not even pretending anymore. We're just, why bother telling them? Everybody knows. Everybody knows. The language matters, Venezuela's being treated not as a country, but as another asset on your balance sheet. That's it. It's crazy. The United States isn't pressuring Venezuela anymore. It's taking responsibility. That should make your skin crawl. We don't own Venezuela. This is nuts. And it goes straight back to Trump, whose remarks over the weekend take away any ambiguity. He didn't speak about negotiation. He didn't speak about mediation. He spoke as if Venezuela were already his. It's his. We're not letting a country like that sit on resources like that anymore. That's a direct quote. We're not letting a country like that sit on resources like that. Tell me this is about narco-terrorism and blowing up boats that happen to get out of the ocean area that you don't like. What's missing? There's not a mention of Venezuelans. Not a mention of elections, no mention of law, just resources. That's it. It's crazy. It's unbelievable. Chinese-aligned commentary, this is a test case. They're keeping track of it. This is not about what they said in Beijing. This is not about Maduro. This is about whether force replaces law in the global system. That matters. China isn't thinking emotionally. It's thinking structure. Think about this. Here's a Chinese foreign policy analyst. If a government can be removed and its assets administered by another state, then no overseas investment is secure. That's not Venezuela talking. That's global finance. That's BRICS talk. That's the sounds of countries quietly recalculating their exposure to the dollar. That's what's happening. And here's Russia saying the quiet part out loud. They dropped being polite. Russian analysts and officials didn't even dance around words like concern, regret. They used words like seizure, coercion, and neo-colonialism. One Russian military guy said, the United States no longer hides that it believes might creates legitimacy. Here's another one. They are not changing regimes anymore. They're managing territories. We're going to run Venezuela. This is critical distinction here. Regime change is temporary. Management is permanent. We're taking over. That's it. And this is where Venezuela gets tied directly to Ukraine, frozen assets, sanctions, more broadly. Another Russian commentator said it this way: if Venezuela's leadership can be handled this way, then frozen assets are only the beginning. This is how the rest of the world is reading the situation. Not as an isolated event, but as a signal. And it's not isolated. We're coming for you, Cuba. We're coming for you, Greenland. That was Donald Trump, for God's sake. We need Greenland. I mean, he said it on Air Force One yesterday. Greenland, we're coming. Unbelievable. Emmanuel Macron talked about process, stability, dialogue. He didn't defend this action. He didn't defend it either. He's uncomfortable with this. If energy-rich states can be directly administered, then Europe's own dependency upon, energy comes back into sharp focus, doesn't it? And the silence from Brussels isn't ignorance. It's, Jesus, what are we going to do now? We've cut off Russia. What if we cut off America? What if we don't bow to the beast that is out there feeding and grazing? The beast might not let us have any Venezuelan oil that they're stealing. And I want to get to the lies that he's told about, that Trump has told lies about Venezuela stole our stuff. It's absolutely false. It is not true. Okay. Zelensky, I hate to go back to, I'm not even going to forget him. He's not even important. But everywhere. This is not about drugs. This is not about democracy. This isn't even about Maduro. When they mention him, he was charged with having a machine gun, having machine guns. What the hell are you talking about? He can have machine guns in his own country if he wants to. This is nuts. And we're just making it up, and Americans are eating it up. I mean, you need to think about this. You truly do. This is about resources, precedent, and raw power. If this were about narcotics, we'd be in Colombia and Peru. This is not about narcotics, not remotely. Don't believe it. I'm going to be very clear. What we're watching is not strength. This is rot. Empires do not collapse when they're challenged. They collapse when they stop pretending to follow the law, when they stop needing an excuse, when they start talking about other people's countries the way landlords talk about a foreclosure. This is not leadership. not remotely. And here's the part that should scare everybody: left, right, indifferent. And by the way, I'm far more conservative than liberal. Once this language is normalized, it'll never get rolled back. If Venezuela can be managed, then so can anyone else who falls out of line. Right? Today it's Caracas. Tomorrow it's Cuba. After that, it's somebody else's energy, somebody else's Arctic ports. We need Greenland. He set that up a year ago. Within a year, he's already stolen a country. This is I don't know. This is I cannot not say something. This you got to say something. I can't imagine that people think this is smart. This is not smart. This is stupid. This is stupid long term. We're a joke on the planet. Rest of the world is listening. They're taking notes, and they're preparing for a future without permission. That is not a warning. That's a diagnosis. We're rotten. This is rot. I tell you what, I don't like it. I don't like this at all. This is not another Venezuelan crisis. This is not another sanctions nothing like that. From regime change to regime control, one of the most important points that you need to become aware of is this is not regime change. Regime change is disruptive, right? But it's temporary. We're not interested in who governs Venezuela. We're interested in how Venezuela is governed by us. If the issue were about Maduro personally, the negotiations, exile deals, internal transition would be sufficient. But that's not the conversation we're having. The conversation is about administration, oversight, custody, management. By Rubio? Rubio's going to, manage Venezuela? This is nuts. You don't talk about running another country unless you believe the question of who owns it is already settled. This is why this story is exploding internationally and everybody's paying attention. This is nuts. The illusions are gone. And I don't know. I wanted to get into pay attention to the what is her name? Rodriguez? I can't remember what her name is. What is her name? The vice president. She came on with a pretty extended statement. So it's important to understand something. The world isn't reacting to speculation. They're reacting to his explicit threats and declarations. This isn't, Trump declares the second attack on Venezuela will occur if Maduro Deputy Delcy disobeys his statement that the U.S. in charge. If she disobeys him, think about that. The U.S. is in charge. That is not diplomatic language. That we are the occupier. We are occupying another country. Trump's position is that Delcy Rodriguez, who is now described in U.S. discourse as acting or interim leadership, is subject to some kind of direct obedience to Trump. One line directly from Trump. If she disobeys, there will be consequences. We are not playing games anymore. If she disobeys, that's command and control. They no longer have a country. There is no self-determination. This is command and control. This is not a warning. And this is, cross the line. U.S. allies should be uncomfortable with this. You cannot threaten military action based on obedience to a foreign executive without admitting you believe you are sovereign over that country. That isn't policy. That is empire. We are the empire. We are Darth Vader. That is us, or the emperor, because the emperor controlled Darth Vader. Maybe Trump's Darth Vader would be Lindsey Graham. And Trump is the emperor. That is what's going on. So the Venezuelan response. So the tone from Caracas was initially defiant and talked about their own constitution. No foreign power can swear in a president of Venezuela. That authority belongs to the Venezuelan people and the Constitution, not Washington. What the United States is doing is not diplomacy. It's declaring its own parallel chain of command. Parallel chain of command. That's devastatingly accurate because that's exactly what Donald Trump is issuing orders about. And he's threatening force if you don't follow it. They call it mismanagement. We call it independence. They want our oil under their supervision. That word keeps on coming up, right? They want it. They want our oil under their supervision. Wow. So I don't know if any of you ever listened to him. I don't listen to him all that often, but there's a guy named Larry Johnson. He's a former CIA analyst, and I was paying attention to him. He said something interesting. He said, yes, Trump crossed the line, and not accidentally. He said that threatening force based on obedience to U.S. authority constitutes de facto occupation doctrine. Once you declare you are in charge, international law is no longer ambiguous. It's just not. It's nuts. This is no longer about left or right. It's about whether the world is governed by law or by whoever says, I'm in charge. When presidents start issuing orders to other countries' leaders, when oil is justification for obedience, when sovereignty is conditional, history tells us where that leads. Yep. This is nuts. Oh. Let's see. Where did the next part go? The U.S. is in charge. U.S. is in charge. Yeah. We need obedience. Venezuela said, you do not swear in our president. And Venezuelan analysts said, no foreign power has the authority to swear in a Venezuelan president. Did you watch that? What Washington is declaring is not diplomacy. They don't like it. It's Sam, who can always find something to speak about. I am especially disturbed about, and you should go listen to it on Air Force One. It's like a 30-minute, 35-minute, maybe JR will play it later today. Basically the we are in charge. Most important thing to understand is that Trump never speaks as if Venezuela is a foreign country. He speaks as if the authority to run Venezuela actually exists. It doesn't. He speaks as if decisions have already been made. We'll let the vice president? If Maduro was the problem, why can't the vice president do something? Why are you going to say when elections can be? We're not going to invest anything. Here's what he said. This is actual quote. We're not going to invest anything. We're going to just take care of the country. That sentence would have caused an international crisis if spoken by any prior U.S. president. Take care of the country? Who are you? They have no sovereignty. They have external management and indefinite control. That's what they got. And there is no self-determination. One of the things that we've pushed for all over the place is self-determination. It never is self-determination, by the way. We've been watching that forever. Trump lays out a sequence that appears multiple times. We're going to fix it. We'll have elections at the right time. The main thing is you have to fix a broken country. The main thing is You have to fix a broken country. This is important. Elections are no longer a source of legitimacy. They're a reward granted after you comply. You comply and we'll give you some elections, but you can't have them before that because we're coming in to fix your country. India fought this against Britain for how long? Seriously. This is nuts. Sovereignty is suspended. Governance is conditional. Democracy that we're supposed to live for is postponed until Washington approves. That's colonialism, not democracy. And get this is even worse. We need total access. This is an actual quote from Donald Trump. We need total access. We need access to the oil and to other things in their country that allow us to rebuild their country. Who died and made you God to build their country? What the hell is this? That sentence is a staggering sentence. Total access? No sovereign control, no negotiated terms, no reciprocity. And when he was pressed on what these other things meant, guess what he said? He skipped gold, but they are one of the largest producers of gold. He switched to steel, aluminum, minerals, rare earth processing. He's extracting anything of value from Venezuela. And he's given the money to Western companies. So Venezuela will never profit. They will be Africa 2.0 under France. That's what it'll be. And get this. Here he's reversing reality. This he repeatedly claims, and he's wrong. He's stretching the truth to be kind about it. He's stretching the truth. Trump repeatedly claims that Venezuela stole U.S. oil infrastructure. Here's the direct quote, and he said this repeatedly. It was the greatest theft in the history of America. Nobody has ever stolen our property like they have. This is historically false, okay? Quite false. By redefining nationalization as theft, Trump reframes Venezuelan sovereignty as a criminal act, U.S. retaliation against it as recovery, and invasion is a repossession. The same logic used in Iraq, oil contracts, Iran, assets, Libya, frozen money. Once this framing is accepted, force is just a collection activity, right? We were ready for a second wave. He casually references, escalating it. Oh, we're ready for a second wave, no problem. And later, we'll do a second strike. No congressional language, no international mandate. It's a unilateral strike doctrine spoken as if it were routine maintenance. Geez, well, you gotta pump out on floor 2 over there. It's the exact same. Well, if we gotta bomb the shit out of Venezuela, okay, This is now we talk about near the end. Somebody asked a question about the Monroe Doctrine. Here's what he said. He said, it's our hemisphere. The Monroe Doctrine was very important when it was done. Other presidents lost sight of it. I didn't. This is one of the most important lines in this He's not referencing history. He's reviving a dead doctrine. It's simply external powers stay out because we're in charge. He places Venezuela inside that framework. Why Lindsey Graham was on Air Force One. Get this. Lindsey Graham, it's not accidental why he's there. This warmongering a-hole has been wrong for years. The loudest Senate advocate of regime change is Lindsey Graham. The architect of sanctions plus force doctrine, Lindsey Graham. The bridge between neocons and MAGA militarists, which didn't exist before. Whatever happened to make America great again? Do you remember Trump actually said it last week? Make Venezuela great again? Who gives a shit? Pardon my French. I don't care if Venezuela's great, and I don't want to own it. And why do we wish to own Venezuela? I don't care what injustices are occurring in Venezuela. I don't care. And the majority of Americans don't. And those of you out there, backslapping, oh, yeah, look what we done again. Old Trumpster's doing it now. All that is bullies in a classroom that are taking joy over the football kid beating up the dork, or the football kid beating up the geek. And, the same old popularity contest. That's what this is. The crap that I rail about against government all the time. Here it is again. Using the government as your own personal weapon. That's what's going on here. Crazy. The bridge of neocon and MAGA, that is Lindsey. Trump invited him into the conversation mid-rant. He was on the plane ranting in response to some question. He said, Lindsey would know that. You might say something on that, Lindsey. And Graham didn't hesitate to drop. It's narco-terrorism aligned with Hezbollah and responsible for American deaths. One of our most sophisticated military operations in the history of the country. There he goes again. This is classic Graham idiocy. He's a maximalist. He wants to stress morality. Oh, geez, we're doing the right thing. He's violent and he's permanent. When Graham is traveling with a president, it can't mean anything good. It means escalation is being normalized, not debated. When Lindsey Graham is helping, war and destruction and defeat follow. This here, the most disturbing line for me at all is this. I'll tell you what, Maduro's country, which isn't really his country anymore, it's certainly not his country anymore. That's what Trump said. Let's say that again. Maduro's country, which isn't really his country anymore, it's certainly not his country anymore. Trump is explicitly declaring that Venezuela no longer belongs to its own government. That isn't rhetoric, people. That's talk. That's a claim of a sovereign transfer. He took it. This wasn't a press gaggle. This wasn't even, it was bravado. He talks about it all. He can't talk without, bragging. But the doctrine is being spoken out loud. He's a trustee. He's talking about our resources, conditional elections, unilateral strikes, hemispheric ownership, and contempt for international law. No euphemisms, only empire. That's what this is. And I tell you what, when leaders start speaking this way, casually, incoherently, but confidently, it means internal brakes are gone. They are gone. There are no brakes. And trust me, Lindsey Graham is there throwing more coal in the engine. That's what he is doing. This is troubling. It is, unguarded truth. This is not polished messaging. Trump's never very polished, but they catch him on this, and this is, he probably should have thought about some of things. This is I tell you what, I'm outraged. I really am. And Lindsey Graham, he's earned this. Graham earns all of this. The President of the United States speaking casually to reporters. No teleprompter, no prepared remarks, only instinct. And his instinct is where he leaks out the truth. We're not going to invest anything. We're going to just take care of the country. We own it. It's ours, basically. Fix it. We'll have elections at the right time. Main thing is you have to fix a broken country. We'll have elections. The thing that supposedly gives legitimacy, they're postponed until Washington decides the country is actually fixed. You're on probation. Colonial probation for you, Venezuela. You're on probation. We'll tell you when we think you're allowed to have elections. This is cocked up, friends and neighbors. Let's talk about the resources. Again, this is negotiated access, not shared access, not compensated access. This is total access. This is we're taking it, we win, you lose, you're done. Okay? They call it one of the greatest thefts in American history. Nationalization is not theft, it's sovereignty. If you redefine sovereignty as theft, then suddenly invasion is allowed, right? Same old garbage logic that destroyed Iraq, Libya, half the credibility of the West. Now the rest is gone. He says we're ready for a second wave. We're going to keep coming. We hate Lindsey Graham. I mean, Lindsey Graham, surprise, surprise. We hate Lindsey Graham because wherever he goes, war follows. He don't want to fix anything. He wants to bomb everything. We hate Lindsey Graham because he treats the world like his own personal risk board, and America lives like poker. American lives like poker chips. And Trump invites him in. Oh, geez, come on in. One of the most sophisticated military operations in the history of the country. Lindsey Graham in his natural habitat, smiling at chaos, clapping at force, demanding more. Yeah, we need more of this. It's our hemisphere. It's our hemisphere. That's it, folks. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about this stealing of problem, of stealing of American property, okay? So what Trump is referring to, but mangling horribly when he says it, because he said it several times. No details, no fact, no nothing. What he says is they've stolen our property, and that's bullshit. Ready? But remember, there were two major nationalization movements, one under Hugo Chavez in 2006 and 2007. This has got to be the core event that Trump is pointing at, because the other one occurred in 75, 76, the first nationalization movement, when they created that PDVSA, which is the oil company of Venezuela. And but the core event that Trump is talking about when he says that they're stealing is Venezuela required foreign oil companies to convert their operations into joint ventures and accept PDVSA majority ownership. Why? So that people wouldn't do this. So that, they weren't subject to this. Several U.S. companies objected. The biggest one, ExxonMobil. Exxon refused the new terms. Then Venezuela expropriated Exxon's projects in the Orinoco Belt in 2007. Exxon sued Venezuela in international arbitration. This was not theft under international law. It's not. That is, it's state nationalization is permitted. It's legal if compensation is paid. Arbitration happened. The arbitration took place, and U.S. companies won. This is where Trump's claim really falls apart. This is bullshit, right? Arbitration rulings at the international courts, international tribunals, ExxonMobil was awarded billions. Venezuela paid significant compensation. Some awards were reduced later on appeal. Chevron stayed in Venezuela, negotiated, continued operating even through sanctions with U.S. permission. So the idea that they stole our property and never paid is simply false. This was litigated, arbitrated, settled in stages, and ongoing legally, not militarily. So let's be clear about what did not occur. Nothing under Maduro. Nothing under Maduro to change what happened under Chavez in 2007. Nothing. No new mass nationalization in the last decade. No U.S. infrastructure stolen in the Trump or Biden years. No event that justifies Trump's greatest theft in history language. Nothing even remotely close. Why is Trump saying this now? Because he's a salesman. He has to justify this. He has to try to keep some of us, on board with the bullshit that he is conducting. I am not on board, obviously, not remotely for this. This is bullshit. We are bullies. That's it. And politically and psychologically, he's trying to keep three things in order. He wants to reframe nationalization as theft. By calling it theft, he can turn sovereignty into a crime, arbitration into some sort of injustice, and an invasion. He can justify that because we need recovery. This justifies force. What he's doing is he's justifying it because if he can reframe nationalization as theft, well, geez, we have a right to go in there. You don't have any right to do so. And he's been very clear, we're stealing the oil. That's it. And now everything else. Well, long as we're here, we might as well take all the aluminum, all the gold, everything that Venezuela has in abundance, we're stealing. The profits will go to the American extraction companies, and the gold. But we'll take care of you. We'll dribble out. Just like the colonials in the colonialists in the Crown in India. Well, and the United States. We were a colony. Now we're colonialists. Now we're taking over the world. Let's collapse time. Trump is blending Chavez-era disputes from 2006 and 2007, long-settled arbitrations, modern sanctions, and current regime pressure into one emotional blob that he and Rubio and Graham turn into something that sounds urgent and unresolved, but it's not. He's preparing a legal fiction. If Venezuela stole American property, then U.S. action is repossession, asset seizure is recovery of property that you stole, and occupation is just management of another oil field. That's it. This is exactly how empires talk themselves into intervention. And why the 70s idea doesn't quite fit, Venezuela did nationalize oil in the 70s, but that was widely accepted. It was gone. U.S. companies were compensated. PDVSA was formed with international cooperation, and Trump is not in any way, he's not really talking about that. He's talking about Chavez in 2007, 20 years ago. That's recent, right? He was looking at, well, you know what he can do is he can go into Venezuela with no environmentalists, coming after the U.S., right? This is dangerous language. This is dangerous when a sitting U.S. president says the greatest theft in the history of America about a foreign government action settled in international courts. He's doing something specific. He's delegitimizing international law itself. International law no longer counts if you're Donald Trump and you have the greatest armed forces in the world on your side. Because if arbitration outcomes don't count, then courts don't matter, treaties don't matter, only power matters. Which brings us right back to why Lindsey Graham's presence is radioactive. Because he has spent his career arguing that if law gets in the way, law should move. That's it. Trump creating stories from old disputes, partially true, half-truths from long ago. He's factually wrong. Legally, it's indefensible. And rhetorically, it's preparation for force. That's it. He isn't describing reality. He's manufacturing a justification. That's it. That is what is happened. That's all. There were some exact, let's see. There were ExxonMobil affiliates versus Venezuela, Chavez 2007 on the Orinoco project. They were awarded $908 million. And then they got another award at the World Bank of $1.6 billion as compensation, and then they were allowed to deduct the first $908 million. So they've been disputing that for a little while. So that wasn't theft. It was a nationalization dispute that went to international arbitration. Exxon sued. Tribunals ruled. There were awards and $908 million. Venezuela even argued in their proceedings that it had already paid the ICC an amount and it should be deducted. That's true. There were one with ConocoPhillips versus Venezuela. The award was $2 billion. And they've paid, how many? $700 million of that they were making payments on. So when you decode what Trump means when he says Venezuela stole American property and created the greatest theft, he's talking about 2007. It's... I ranted about that quite a bit here. What exactly was stolen from whom? It's not much. It's really nonsense. It'd be fun to cross-examine him to get him up there. The greatest theft in history. Okay, facts. Let's establish the timeline, please, for the jury. The oil nationalization was in 2007, 18 years ago. Well, those disputes, international arbitration, they stole our property. They took our infrastructure. No, they nationalized an oil project. That's allowed if they, get paid, and they followed the rules afterward. They had awards of $8.7 billion, separate awards of $2 billion. PDVSA paid $700 million. So, Counselor, when you say they stole, do you mean before or after the World Bank Tribunal ruled upon it? Because last I checked, thieves don't usually show up to arbitration and write checks. That's us. That's what we're doing. We're going in, no doubt, to steal it. And then here's a rhetorical trick. They took our stuff. We're just fixing it. Trump says they took our stuff and we're fixing this. Sovereignty's a crime. Arbitration is injustice. This is so nonsensical. Why weren't we paid? They took it and they never paid. That's not true. This isn't robbery. It's a sovereign debt enforcement problem. And by the way, you limited their ability to do it when you put sanctions on them. I guarantee you there won't be sanctions when you steal the oil from Venezuela, will there? We're going to take care of the country. How about that? No treaty, no mandate, no UN process. Just, we'll take care of it. Marco, I think you're going to be running Venezuela, aren't you? Isn't that what we decided? Oh, boy. All these exhibits. Let's talk about Lindsey Graham in Exhibit A. Lindsey Graham and his career of disaster, right? Okay. Anybody on the jury, anyone still pretending that this is some kind of something new, something exciting, something positive, I submit Exhibit A, the career of Lindsey Graham. Let's establish his pattern, motive, and foreseeable harm, shall we? This isn't a one-off. It's not bad luck. This is consistent behavior over decades, and the result is always the same. Where Lindsey Graham goes, fire and war follows. And then he walks away every time, shocked. Every single time. Let's start with his first original sin. Iraq, 2002, 2003. He was an enthusiastic supporter of weapons of mass destruction, regime change, the Iraq war. They'll greet us as liberators. What did Iraq get? 1 million dead people, a shattered state, ISIS, endless regional instability. Still there. What did Lindsey Graham get? Re-election, promoted, zero accountability. So, Your Honor, the witness supported a war based on claims that were false, outcomes that were predictably catastrophic, and consequences that never touched him personally. That's Exhibit A. Exhibit B. Count 2. Libya, 2011. We came, we saw, he died. When NATO moved against Libya, Lindsey Graham was again front and center. He openly celebrated the overthrow and murder of Muammar Gaddafi. What happened next? Quiet. What happened? Libya collapsed into chaos. Slave markets reemerged. Weapons flooded into North Africa. Terror groups multiplied everywhere. Libya went from authoritarian but functioning to permanent failed state. So, Your Honor, at what point does total state collapse stop being called a success? Count 3. Syria. The war that never ends. Lindsey Graham is still involved. He's still with it. He pushes for arming rebels, no-fly zones, direct confrontation. What's the result? Same thing. Prolonged war, millions displaced, extremists empowered, U.S. credibility shredded once again. When it goes bad, what did he do? He blamed Obama, then Trump, then Biden, then complained that we never used enough force. Never, ever did he have any internal reflection. Never, ever any accountability for himself. His solution to every failure is more of the same failed policy. Let's go to Iran. Where's next? Count 4. Iran. The perpetual almost war. Lindsey Graham has spent years advocating strikes on Iran. In fact, he's running around right now saying, Iran, you're next. He's undermining diplomacy. He's cheering sanctions escalation. The result, nuclear deals destroyed. Iran closer to weapons capability. The region is far less stable in his position. We should have hit him harder. At what point do almost wars become strategic addiction? And then move on to his, count 5, Ukraine. That guy has spent more time in Ukraine than he spends in his home state. Sanctions, escalation, long war. Graham is among the loudest voices constantly for maximizing sanctions, no negotiated settlement until victory. We're not going to win. Ukraine is not going to win. Not remotely. The idiots that think that are finally, accepting that it's unlikely. Finally. What is this meant in reality? Because Lindsey Graham never pays the price. Never. In fact, now here he is recommending shit to Trump again. And any one of these 5 should go, Jesus, this guy's... Find that on a resume and say you want to hire a guy like that. This is nonsense. 5 failures in a row, and you're going to bring him into Venezuela? That's great. He's flying an Air Force One, recommending the same old crap. Graham is among the loudest voices in Ukraine for same old crap. We'll go until victory. Throw in more men. Lower your age to your recruiting age to 18. Hundreds of thousands of people dead. Europe seriously destabilized. Global food and energy shock. Every time talks are mentioned, Graham attacks them and tries to harpoon them out of existence. So, Your Honor, the witness equates compromise with weakness as an endless war as a virtue. War is a virtue if you're Lindsey Graham. And now, count 6, Venezuela. Same script, new country. There you go again. Remember when Ronald Reagan said that? And here we are again. Call the country narco-terrorists. That's not true. Call nationalization theft. That's not true. Call arbitration a failure. That's not true. And call force justice. There he is, traveling with the president, nodding, smiling, encouraging escalation. The same man, the same playbook, the same results, loading up in the background. If Lindsey Graham is advising you, the outcome is already known. You just haven't seen the body count yet. But his pattern, let's summarize this for the jury or for the judge. Iraq, disaster. Libya, disaster. Syria, disaster. Iran, destabilization and disaster. Ukraine, endless war and disaster. Venezuela, lining up to be next. Disaster. This is not a coincidence. This is his career-long continuity. And why does this keep happening? What's his motive? Seriously, what's his motive? Why does this keep happening? Because Lindsey Graham never personally pays the cost. In fact, he gets promoted. He gets more money. The military-industrial complex gives him more money every time he's the idiot out there pumping this thing, and he does it with a straight face. He has learned the art of making himself believe. Is bullshit. And he never pays the cost himself. He never apologizes. If he learns, it's not evident anywhere. And by the way, he never stops. War is an abstract to him. It's nothing realistic because he doesn't have to deal with it. It's not for him. It's a risk board. That's it. Suffering, that's theoretical. That's... Yeah, there's some suffering, but at least it's not me and my family. Is basically what he says. Suffering is, theoretical. Consequences are for other people, not for him. He's never had one consequence come his way. Whenever Lindsey Graham appears near a foreign policy decision, one of two things is going to happen. The situation gets worse, or it just explodes. The evidence is overwhelming, and then he moves on to the next war. He's already on his way to Cuba and Greenland. He's on his way there. Therefore, I ask that the court, the public, the listeners, anybody with a memory longer than a year or two, render the only reasonable verdict that this guy is not an advisor. He is a warning sign. And when he's on the plane, smiling and whispering in the president's ear, you shouldn't be reassured by that. That ought to be a smoke alarm going off badly. Now let's go on to Marco Rubio. Now, remember when I told you when Trump got elected and he was appointing people and he appointed Rubio, and I was going, oh my God, that guy? That's junior mode Lindsey Graham. Those two were always there. This is neocon, exhibit, and Trump has been totally commandeered by the neocons. But now he's in on it. He's given up on Ukraine. He just walked away from that. That's it. Can't be done. Now he can just use it as a way to beat Putin. Look what I did in one night, taking over, Maduro, capturing Maduro by paying everybody off, by the way. Maybe Putin should do that to Zelensky. Is that what you recommend? Would the world like that if he did the same thing to Zelensky? Seriously, is that what we're supposed to agree, that that Putin should just go in and kill Zelensky? Zelensky called for the killing of Putin several times. So, same old neocons, no matter who's the president, Marco Rubio, special attention for him. So, the prosecution will now turn from the individual repeat offender to the organization that comes behind, because Lindsey Graham doesn't operate alone, and he never has. Behind every urgent intervention, every last chance, every we must act now speech is a group of serially wrong club that never leaves. Different presidents, but same advisors, same disasters, the same neocon conveyor belt, and it never stops. The formula, neocon formula. Declare the target country uniquely evil. Tell you what, the Venezuela's evil. Maduro's evil. Saddam Hussein evil. ISIS evil. Everybody's evil. Muammar Gaddafi evil. Reduce history to a cartoon moment. It's cartoon. Ignore diplomacy. That's a weakness you don't want to have. You can't have that. Call economic warfare pressure. Call military force inevitable. And when it collapses, Blame somebody else. Remember that movie Live, Die, Repeat with Tom Cruise? I don't know why I like that movie. I could watch that probably, every few months, but I just like that movie. Here, rinse, repeat, rebrand. Live, die, repeat. Same old crap. Only they don't die. They're not the ones dying. They're killing off everybody else. So enter Marco Rubio, the permanent crisis merchant. Now let's go to him. Let's bring him to the stand. Rubio has built his entire foreign policy brand on one idea. Every problem requires maximum pressure, especially in the Western Hemisphere. Cuba, Venezuela, Nicaragua, Iran, China, Russia. Always sanctions, always threats, always escalation. Never results. Cuba. 60 years of failure, zero reflection. He's one of the loudest advocates for tightening embargoes, punishing engagement, blocking normalization. What has that achieved, seriously? Cuban government still in power, Cuban people ever poorer, U.S. influence reduced. But every time he says something, we just didn't go far enough, we need to take it over. How many decades of failure does it take before a policy is allowed to be called what it is? Seriously, how long do we have to fail? His obsession in Venezuela. Rubio has been personally obsessed with Venezuela for years. He's championed crippling sanctions, parallel government, regime change openly, and he cheers economic collapse as a leverage. What happened? Well, until recently, Maduro is still there. The economy has been, nearly destroyed. Millions have been displaced. U.S. credibility, gone. Rubio says, it's working. If his goal was stability, he's creating malpractice. If the goal is suffering, this is working. This is nonsense. Count 3. Maximum pressure as a religion. He likes sanctions. He's just like Graham. Sanctions with zero off-ramps, sanctions with no negotiation, sanctions with no humanitarian planning. What are the results? Civilian suffering, black market, hardened regimes, more criminals, and alliances shifting away from the United States. What's his answer? More pressure. We're the biggest dogs on the block. We're the biggest bullies. At what point does maximum pressure say what it really is, which is maximum denial? Iran, again, destroy the deal, shrug at the consequences. Rubio celebrates the destruction of the Iran nuclear deal. What followed? Iran is even closer to nuclear capability. The region is less stable. The U.S. is isolated from its allies. And what does Rubio say? We should have hit him harder. This is like the guy that destroys the fire extinguisher and then complains that the house is burning. This is Rubio, and to some extent, absolutely, Graham. In a morality costume, right? He always wants to talk about freedom, democracy, and human rights. Where's that for Venezuela? Seriously. The abuses are ignored. His own abuses, our abuses. Enemy abuses are weaponized. You talk about how horrible they are. They're masters at this. Suffering is acceptable if it's useful to your argument. It's selective outrage as a strategy. So the neocon network is always landing on their feet. Here's the most damning part. These people are never wrong enough to be fired. Never wrong enough. They're promoted. They're invited back on TV. They write op-eds. They board planes. There's no consequences, no accountability. Never do they learn. Rubio isn't loud like Graham. He's smoother. That makes him more dangerous, not less. He packages escalation as seriousness. Failure is resolve. Stubbornness is his principle. He sells disaster, with a law degree and a calm voice. What's the pattern? Same people, same assumptions, same tools, same results, only the country names have changed. That's it. It's crazy, isn't it? Think tanks. Same thing from think tanks. They're all fed, validated, covered, the basic scam. A think tank publishes a warning every single time. The warning assumes escalation is inevitable. Diplomacy is naive or dangerous. Military options are described as credible. Sanctions are called measured. War happens. Nobody ever gets fired. Funding is increased to each of the think tanks. This is career continuity. It's not analysis. This is BS. It's telling people what they want to hear. American Enterprise Institute, nonsense. Wrong about Iraq, Libya, Syria, Iran, Venezuela. Somehow, they're still given money, still treated as serious. Atlantic Council, NATO's echo chamber. They escalate some more. A test of credibility, a moment of resolve, a line in the stand. Ukraine, escalate. Russia, escalate. China, escalate. Venezuela, of course, escalate. Same old people. At what point does the echo chamber become a liability to national security? Never. What about the Brookings Institute? They're polite, but they're wrong. They're a respectable version of the same disease because they don't shout, they don't pound the table. There are no good options, they say. Force may be unavoidable. The risk of inactions are greater than inaction is framed as a decision. War is framed as, gravity. They get there. How about the Council on Foreign Relations? This is nonsense. Is it serious? People are considering. Consensus is forming. The windows are closing. This is elite signaling that, we're giving you this consensus that we need to take over. Follow the money. Same old folks doing the same old thing. And, that doesn't mean that every scholar is corrupt, but it does mean the conclusions are some are safer than others, right? They're supported by defense contractors, energy interests, financial firms, foreign policy donors. So who do you think they're going to cater to? You do lose influence if you say we should stop, right? So you got to say, we got to keep on trucking, right? Why does this matter for Venezuela? Because before Trump ever said they stole our property, before Rubio ever demanded maximum pressure, and before Lindsey Graham ever boarded that plane, these think tanks had already framed Venezuela as illegitimate, described nationalization as criminal, normalized trustee language, dismissed negotiation as appeasement, and got the media to label everything as narco-terrorism. So, the media is always in there. They amplify all of these jobs. The panels always agree. You always have a hawk. You have a slightly quieter hawk, one moderate hawk, but who agrees and sighs while saying so. No skeptics. This could get worse. This violates the law. This is crazy stuff. Friends and neighbors, that's all I'm going to rant about it this week, I think. I think I'm going to, just check out this Lost. This is nonsense, and I don't like it. And I think it is unfortunate what is happening in the world today. I don't like it. And but there's very little I can do about it except complain about it, and which I just have for a good hour and a half. I appreciate you being here on the program this morning. I encourage you to listen every morning from 7:30 to 9 a.m. Tomorrow I'm going to get back into the Missouri debacles that are occurring around here. Some of the stories that I got started with last week, I'm going to continue with. And we're going to keep on trucking in that regard. You can listen to Dem Radio, demradio.com/live, demradio.com/podcasts to get all the wonderful content and from other commentators and great music at other times. You can catch our schedule at demradio.com/schedule. And for me, my shows, I upload them all daily, put them out at internationalflavor.com. And You can go out there and listen to them at your leisure, and I hope that you do. I hope you have a very good week. It's a brand new year. Let's look out for some brand new things and make it a good year for you individually, because it's going to hell in a handbasket nationally and internationally. Have a very good day.